Welcome to the Chai Chat Podcast, solutions for empowered living. Engaging, educating, empowering. Each week, your hosts Tarun Puri, author of Finding the Guru Within, and Steve Harvey, mindset mentor to A-list celebrities and stars, bring a combined expertise of over 6 decades in mentoring, coaching, and inspiring positive solutions to the negatives which keep us stuck and unhappy. With a focus on solutions versus problems, in each episode, they discuss topics relevant to the human condition, which challenge us from moving forward into positive growth and ultimate freedom. Through stream of consciousness, unscripted dialogue and inquiry, they provide practical, deep, and actionable insights to support you in creating and living a happy, successful, fulfilled life. Join us each week and learn how to access your own inner GPS, your guru positioning system, which comes preset with all the solutions you need for empowered living. Living a life of ease versus effort is only a thought away. Let us show you what works and what doesn't.
Hello and welcome to Chai Chat, the podcast. I am Tarun Puri.
And I'm Steve Harvey.
And today we're on episode 12 of our 12 series podcast that we had begun with the word reset. And today's word is renewal. So friends, if you've been following along, you know that we have launched this podcast and we had decided to do it as a series of 12 called From Reset to Renewal. And our intention was really to address the whole idea of the Great Reset that we've heard so much about, Steve, in the last couple of years, and put it into a positive light. Because truly for me, and I know for you, Steve, and many of our friends, it has been such a gift that
absolutely
right, the opportunities that have arisen for us to become more aware, more present, more conscious of our, I want to say, the environment out there, starting with an E, and our environment that starts with an I. You know how I love to play with words, right? So yeah. I thought that I was a pretty aware, cool cat out there, just kind of really knew it all, was really aware. And my gosh, the last 2 years have shown me you've got a ways to go, Tarun, little ways. So the Great Reset has been a wonderful way to explore the idea of a reset. And of course, we coupled that with the title of my book that I just published called Finding the Guru Within, because you and I are very much on the same page that change or even life is a journey that is best lived from the inside out. And I love what you always say, right? But only 100% of the time.
Yeah, it's an inside job, but only 100% of the time.
I love that because, you know, and so in this series, we were attempting to weave that thread and bring all the topics that we covered back to that recognition and the realization or the base awareness that as much as we have attempted to affect permanent, enduring, positive change and growth in our lives, every time we've tried to do it from the outside in, we have essentially not been, let's say, nearly as successful or fulfilled. Grab your chai now, because you're not going to want to, jump out when we're having this chat. And I'm going to ask Steve for today's episode is called The Gift of Renewal, Getting Past the Past. So
yeah, and what
Steve.
better what better way to wrap up the first 12 episodes than this one, Getting Past the Past. I was very fortunate to meet our next guest in person in London, England, about 3 or 4 years ago. And you know how you meet some people in your life and they just leave an indelible mark in your heart. And Johann and his lovely wife, Rafaela, they had that effect on me. It was just a wonderful, wonderful, uplifting experience for me and my wife after meeting them in London. And we've kept in touch ever since. And so when we were looking at who could we bring on as a guest to really talk about this getting past the past and the gift of renewal, then someone who's actually walked the talk, so to speak. They've really experienced this journey, from reset to renewal. And so today's guest is none other than Johann Ilgenfritz. He was a master photographer, a fashion photographer in Germany for 20 years in Hamburg and in London. But then his life changed drastically in 2011 when he had a heart attack. And then 6 months later, as if that wasn't enough, 6 months later, he was diagnosed with cancer. And after an unsuccessful radiotherapy, he was left to find other survival options, which he did. And during this research, he turned to the internet, as do many of us, when we're looking for solutions to our challenges. And he realized that there was not one central point where you could turn to get the proper health information, regardless of what your health issues were. So he decided on creating just a platform to do that. And 6 weeks later, he launched the beta version of UK Health Radio, all the while still fighting cancer at the same time. And through nutritional and lifestyle changes, he was, thank God, he was finally able to beat cancer. And since then, he has been named the curator of health expertise by the press. And his mantra is, good health is a choice. He went from believing that cancer was the cause of his illness to realizing that cancer was only a symptom of an already sick body. He knew if he could change the cause, he would change the effect. And Johann is really careful to say this does not mean taking your health into your own hands, but to be part of the process. And I think this is really important, to be part of the process of attaining and or keeping your health freedom. It's all about being informed, being empowered, and being healthy. And UK Health Radio has the most in-depth information on a wide range of health and wellness topics available anywhere today. And so it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Johann Ilgenfritz to our show today. Johann is also the winner of the Holistic Therapist Business Awards in 2017 and the Best U Awards in the category of Best Up and Coming Inspirational Influencer 2018. And so I just know that our listeners out there today are really going to be influenced and inspired by what Johann has to share with his journey. So Johann, without any further ado, welcome.
Hi.
Hello. It's such a privilege to be here with yourselves today. Thank you so much, Tyrone. Wonderful to see you, Steve.
Lovely to see you. So I wonder if you could begin by going right back to the beginning, Johann, and just speaking a little bit about, first of all, what that was like to be given that diagnosis, the big C, and then how you dealt with that, and how you went about trying to find solutions, for your challenges.
Steve, yeah, it was. I actually look at it as two diagnoses, purely from my point of view. It's actually quite important. The first diagnosis put me into such a frenzy. That's all I could call it, I have to admit, that I just blindly stumbled into radiotherapy and just, as you mentioned before, being part of the process. I was so not part of that process. It was unbelievable. I mean, I had no duties. Nobody told me to do anything. Nobody said to me, exercise or don't exercise. Nobody said, eat properly or eat this or take this supplement, or there was absolutely no support. And of course, my state of mind was all over the place. As I said, I literally was in a very bad place at that stage. It was actually probably the worst time of my life, because I'd never felt so unempowered before. I'd never felt, and it's really difficult to put it in words, but it's I really felt at sea completely, So, and as I said, that almost lack of guidance of what to do, where to go, was really an awful place to be. It really was. So there was this expective passiveness from the medical side towards me. Literally, the only thing I had to do was be there for the treatment. That was my only duty I had. It passed. The radiotherapy did work. I was cancer-free for about 5 months. And actually, during my first post-cancer screenings and everything, my oncologist sat me down and said to me, Johann, unfortunately, I have some bad news. The cancer has returned with a vengeance, and it had literally spread everywhere. But due to contrary belief, the second diagnosis, I was in the right place. I was in a total different place to where I was the first time. I think, and now I look back at not as the first diagnosis and what I went through being a catastrophe. It was a preparation for the second diagnosis. I mean, I can still hear it sitting in my oncologist's office, and she telling me, Johann, you have a maximum of 12 months. We're so sorry. We have nothing left to do for you, etc., etc. And I can hear a voice in the back of my head, my voice in the back of my head, screaming at me, it's not going to happen. All you have to do, you've gone through one treatment thing, all you have to do is you have to go and find another way to do this. That's and it was, that was actually the beginning of what, for me, the beginning of a new life there in that room that day, after just receiving such a terrible thing, information and diagnosis, was actually the beginning of a new life, which which you mentioned earlier. I used to be a fashion photographer, loved it, absolutely adored it, and then this came about, and a lot of people look at me and they say, "Oh, you poor thing," and I go, "No, nothing like that. It's a life opportunity. Life has given me a new opportunity." And my favorite quote from Mark Twain is, there are two important days in every person's life. And the one is the day you're born, and the second one is the day you find out why. And that was the beginning of me finding out why. I didn't know yet at that time, but that was basically the beginning of me finding out why I am on this beautiful planet of ours.
So every crisis has a blessing. Yeah.
Yes, oh, definitely. I mean, that was, I now look at crises or things that happen to you in a very, very different way. But I'm talking about quite a few years ago. So that, but still, that initial happening to where I am today happened that day in the oncology hospital, in my oncologist's office, and it was actually invigorating almost. I mean, I was scared, silly, of course, because I went home and I sat down, made the biggest mistake of my life by not telling my family about the second diagnosis, about
boy.
Being terminal cancer. I thought I didn't know how to do it, and the longer it took, the more involved and the more difficult it became. So made a huge mistake there, but still, I went home, I sat down, and I thought to myself, okay, so first option didn't work. Now find other options, but I had no idea where. And what did I do? I went there where everybody says you shouldn't go,
Google.
to the internet. Because where else,
They always say Dr. Google.
Yeah. Yeah, and Dr. Google is dangerous, but somehow I got through it as well. It's that I just started researching and started looking and reading. Wow, I think I've ever read so much in my life as those first 6-7 months. And
it sounds like you were guided, like that voice in your head that spoke in the office was there with you if you were open to it. And it sounds to me that it guided you through the madness of the internet world too, because obviously there's everything for the choosing.
Definitely. There was definitely a mind shift, in a beginning of a mind shift. I mean, we all know mind shifts don't happen like in the movies. It's not a drop of a pin and everything is fine. But it was definitely that beginning. You mentioned it, Steve, in the beginning. I went from honestly believing that cancer was the cause of my illness, to realizing it was a symptom of me making my body sick. Cause and effect, natural law. You change the cause, you will change the effect. I mean, there's nothing even more scientific than that, than a natural law, So, and the other thing that, sorry,
your lifestyle at the time, do you think that was, a sick lifestyle you were living?
At that stage, for me, I'm a great believer in personalized medicine, because none of us are the same, and different things have different effects on all of us. But most definitely that my lifestyle at that point was what was making me ill. Time pressure. Afterwards, I really went into stress, looking at stress, etc., and really realized that the time pressure was probably my biggest poison at that stage. Because as a photographer, you are always under the gun. You are always being pushed. Productions cost a fortune. So if you can do it in 8 days instead of 10 or 12, it saves everybody money. So and the pressure of being on location and it not working and coming back with nothing to show for a really expensive production, I think really got me in the end. I think that was one of the things. And of course, my lifestyle. I was up until 3-4 every morning. And you know what it's like in a studio. You eat when you can. You order stuff in. It's just all wrong. Everything about the whole lifestyle is wrong. It definitely caused what happened to me. Well, as I said, good health is a choice, and I know that's a really, really risky thing to say. But in my case, good health really was a choice, because when I changed my lifestyle, my health changed.
It'd be interesting to know, when you said that you're living your life on this time schedule of needing to accomplish things in a given set period of time. Did that spill over, though, into your healing journey when the doctors told you had 12 months to live?
I think so. I think it played quite an important part, because I was still on that vibration, if I could call it that, for want of a better word. I spent most nights reading. I've always managed to survive on very little sleep. At that stage, it was even more. I now try and sleep more purposefully, but I still sleep about half to what any other person sleeps at nights. I sleep 3 to 4 hours a night, and for me that's a lot.
Oh my! Don't we have somebody for him to meet soon? Hey, Steve,
Yeah.
our wonder sleep expert. She's amazing. We're learning so much.
Yeah.
We didn't realize there was that much to sleep, like the science of sleep, and she's got some great insights. So we'll make sure we connect up.
Yeah. So I spent nights reading, and it was during one of these nights. This was about 7 months. I joke. I say into my allotted 12. It was about 7 months into my 12 months. Really not well at this stage anymore. Just as an example, it took me 20 minutes to walk up 3 flights of stairs. That's the state of my health, what my health was at that stage. One of my neighbors said I was that funny gray color already, you know, before people transition, they go gray. He said he thought that, you know, that was it. It was all over.
We have a saying in Scotland, you look like death warmed up.
Absolutely. Well, I sure as hell did. I really did.
Yeah.
You know? And it was 2 o'clock in the morning. This is one of the best moments of my life. I read a sentence by a Dr. Warburg. He was a German biochemist.
Nobel Peace
Correct.
Prize.
Yes, he actually won a Nobel Prize for this discovery that I then purely through who knows what read, and it basically reads, cancer cannot survive in an oxygenated alkaline cellular environment. And when I read it, Stephen Tyrone, it was unreal. When I read it, it was as if I was in a football stadium and at night and all the floodlights went on. It was like the sun came up, because that second I knew I had found a way not to die.
Wow.
It was, I actually woke Rafaela. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I actually woke her with exactly those words. Rafaela, wake up. I know how not to die. And it literally, it was so inspiring for both of us. That morning, we started researching this. We sat down both at our separate computers, and we just started Googling, lifestyle, first of all, and then the first thing we stumbled across was nutrition. We all know that nutrition isn't the beginning and end all of it, but it's a hell of a place to start, I promise you. And we just started. We had no idea, and we had nobody to ask, so it was trial and error. We started. I became a vegetarian literally overnight. We downloaded alkaline charts off the internet, of which there are hundreds of thousands, of which there's one I still use. And for everybody listening, some of those charts, you need a degree in computer science to work out. Look for the easiest, look for the simplest one, download it, print it out, put it on your fridge, and live by it. It's amazing.
Great advice. Great advice.
Yeah,
we can make it simple, people will do it, right?
Yeah, it's you know, we as humans tend to complicate everything.
Yes.
You know, it's like and yes, of course, nutrition, we are what we eat, what our food eats, what it's sprayed with, what it's not genetically tampered with, but that's not it. That's only 50% of it. The other 50% is what we think. I didn't know that at the time yet, but that's how it is. That's literally how it is. So yeah, that evolved, and about 6 weeks later, I was on an alkaline vegan diet, and ever since, up to today, I still try and optimize my diet on a daily basis. If ever I read something that I think, wow, that could work, or I try it out, or whatever, I do. So yeah, that was basically the first step. You know, there's a statistic. They say only 5 to 10% all cancer-related illnesses on the planet today are genetically inherited. That means 90 to 95% are contributed to our lifestyle. And nutrition and toxic overload are the top two culprits. Those are the top two culprits, because that's what they are, that are killing so many people today. Yeah, the 50%. The other 50% is what we think. And but that came with time. We in the beginning, we concentrated on the nutrition side of things first. So,
well, when you're looking at detoxing if you look at it in a practical manner, obviously at the symptomatic level, you want to detox the body, the vehicle that you occupy, in order for it to be able to function so that it can allow you to think clearly, right? Yes, and in that process, right, then you go into, well, where has my thinking been toxic? And then we go into the emotional body and we start to look at, so how have I been treating myself? You know, and how have I felt about me, and what may need to change in order for me to, because earlier you said, well, yeah, you know, something about surviving. And I thought, well, yes, we need to survive. So obviously the front line is the body, but how do we go from survivor to thriver?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's
so many people. Yeah.
Right. That's the energy of renewal.
So many people are doing that physical detox, as you say, Tarun, but we're not doing the mental emotional detox, the mental cleanse. And I think, you know, if you could speak a little bit more about that, Johann, it'd be interesting about how you went about detoxifying those mental emotional toxins, if you like.
The relationship with yourself, how did that shift? And how would you, as you look back now, what could you tell us that was different?
I think the first realization from my point of view was, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I realized that if I keep on thinking I've got to give up something, I've got to give up meat, I've got to give up drinking alcohol, I've got to give up eating cheese, that wasn't helping me. So I thought to myself, how do I get through this? And then I started not seeing it as giving up. I started seeing it as making space for something new. And I have to...
You have to take the old car out the garage to put the new one in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And that was the first, that was another mind shift in the correct direction. I wasn't seeing things negatively anymore, because it was a huge change. I literally... Wow, I was 46, 47 at that stage. I had this lifestyle that I literally had to take and turn it 180 degrees on its head and do everything new. And it wasn't easy. Nobody can imagine that it's easy. And I'm not going to tell stories that it was. It wasn't. But it was that mind shift, that not giving anything up, but just making that space for new things to come in. And it's been such a vehicle for me during the years, keep on reminding yourself of that, you know, and keep it top of mind. It's really helped me tremendously.
Well, it's interesting, you know, as when I'm listening to this, I get, okay, I'm confessing publicly, I get little voices in my head. Okay, there you go. Yeah, Steve's like, yeah, okay. And this voice just said to me, you know what's happened, Tarun? And it's a really fun play on words, because he went from being scared.
Yeah.
We take the A and the C and we switch it. What he did was, instead of being scared, he reframed it to creating a sacred space.
Awesome.
Rather than running sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
See, you're giving up. You took the energy away from this is a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And you created a sacred space. In other words, you opened to the sacred to come in. which is based in love. Whereas if you take the A and the C, I hope I've got this right because this voice is telling me, but I haven't cross-checked it in my legal mind, okay. But you switch that around, and if you had stayed in the scared space, right, then you would have been a fear-based, which is totally acidic and not alkaline.
Absolutely.
So no matter how much perfect mana from the Himalayas you were ingesting, if you were running that whole program of fear and being scared and scarce, and then guess what? Doesn't matter how alkaline and blessed the food is. Does that describe? I'm getting a sense of your journey there, where you turned from scared to sacred.
Oh, absolutely. And then on top of that, about 6 weeks into this journey, I had a physical revelation. I try to explain it in this manner, that for most people, it was probably nothing more than a 2-foot swell. But for me, it was like I was surfing a tsunami.
Wow.
I had an energy, whatever you want to call it, hit me about 6 weeks into this, that really solidified that I was doing the right thing. I mean, it took 2.5 years to get rid of everything. So not a quick fix, not even close. But together with that, Tarun, what you've just explained, that leaving the fear base, together with that, still having that physical sensation on top of it, it was a done deal for me. I knew that this is the way to go. And then still on top of it, I had the idea for UK Health Radio, which was another fuel, which was even more energy coming into me, where people in my position at that stage of cancer, and another, please don't let me forget this, the way I look at cancer. It's so vitally important for everybody listening. I just wanted to finish this. It was a further energy field supporting my direction. So I was really lucky, and I'm very grateful for that as well, for that physical input as well that came through. It wasn't all hunky dory from then onwards either, but that never left my mind. That feeling I had, that feeling of now you are part of the process. Whatever you are doing, because I am doing it, I am part of my health process. That never left me, no matter how many ups and downs we went through.
So there was an internal validation. Yeah. An internal validation and empowerment. Yeah. For a moment, you connected to the source of all that is, and wow, you felt the power that's available to you.
Yeah, but definitely.
I think it's also interesting how you made that reframe. Letting go of something versus letting go to the solutions. That mindset shift, I think, was so important on this journey.
Yeah. And I still have it. I still, and I don't call it tapping into it, because then it would mean that I have control over it. It's not that at all. But I still receive that energy almost on a daily basis. But sometimes I catch myself not allowing it. Doesn't happen that often anymore, but quite often I change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. I still remind myself of that so often, and just let it in, just use it, enjoy it, thrive in it, and be grateful for it.
It speaks so much, Steve. Remember, and I know I spoke to it in one of the episodes, and I've written about it in the book. I have the 3 A's. It starts with awareness. And so the awareness, the light of awareness surfaced what needed looking at. Once we have awareness, because without it, doesn't matter what else you have. Without awareness, there's nothing. Stories ended already. But with the awareness, there's an opening. And the next A is attitude. And what you're telling me is that you reframed and you looked at your attitudes, your thinking, right? And guess what? The third A is alignment. And what I'm hearing here is that through awareness and an attitude that got reset or 180 or however you want to look at it, you change your thinking, you created an alignment. And when there's alignment, there's flow. And flow is another word for health and well-being.
Yeah. I mean, Steve mentioned that in the beginning as well. I have a thing that I say to myself: if you don't go within, you will go without. I think that aligns really beautifully with what you mentioned in the beginning also, yes. Tyrone.
Yes.
I physically do that. I sit down purposefully, do that on a daily basis. I go within to see what is all there, so that I don't go without anything. It's really important to me.
So Johann, you mentioned that not to let you forget to talk about the way you look at cancer.
Yeah. There was one thing that really, really worried me right from the first diagnosis already, is everybody always referred to it as your cancer. Your cancer. Johann, your cancer.
Beautiful.
And it really worried me. And in the beginning, I also referred to it as my cancer. I don't anymore, and haven't for a long time. If you refer to it as your cancer, you own it.
Exactly.
We just had that conversation last night.
Yeah.
Go ahead. That's why we're laughing. Exactly that conversation. It's like, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, there was a mutual friend who had been in a very serious car accident, and I was sitting. We're at a little dinner party, and I was talking to him, and several times he referred to my accident, and I said, let me give you a little piece of advice.
Yeah.
You can refer to it as the accident, but don't refer to it as my accident.
Your accident.
And you hear that so many times with people, my fibromyalgia, my diabetes, my cancer, and I think, would you say that's one of the missing pieces of the puzzle, Johann, in the traditional approach to treating cancer, is that is not addressed enough?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Even today, I write a lot as well. In my daily work, I restructure sentences not to put the word cancer in the beginning, so that I can write it with a capital C, so that I don't, that I write and sometimes I even write it with a K, just to show my disrespect.
Love it.
Good.
It's just, it's so important, Steve. It's, I mean, the doctors say to you, it's your cancer.
Yeah.
That's where it starts already, and it's for some reason it worried me right from the beginning, and but I stopped doing that very, very, very soon. And I help a lot of people that are going through cancer at the moment. And I just want to say this: I'm not a health professional, so I'm not giving advice. I'm not telling anybody what to do. And I don't when I help people that are going through cancer either. All I do is I tell them my story. But that's the first thing I say to people, is never, ever refer to it as yours. Because you don't want it. It's going to kill you if you own it. Get rid of that immediately.
Yeah.
The word itself becomes so charged. I mean, I think we almost need to do a show on the cancer of cancer. Right, like because the mind is so powerful that the minute I hear the word, immediately the stories about all the people, the little people, the big people, the billboards, the devastation, all of that immediately begins to run in the mind, and I start to load the program. Oh, well, that's going to be me. Oh, I remember Uncle so and so. And so immediately the mind is that powerful, and it doesn't mediate. It just goes, oh, you want that experience? Okay, here you go. It doesn't say you're overreacting, being a bit of a drama queen. It's going, no problem. That's why the ancients and ever since have said, be very careful what you think, because the minute you've thought it, you have no control. It's gone, it's done. And depending on the energy and the power behind that thought will determine how powerfully it will manifest. And so by reining in that, and in the other studies, which we won't get into today, another topic definitely around this whole topic, cancer and other diseases, we don't even use the word. We always say, let's talk about the symptoms rather than the label.
Yeah.
And from there, let's try to understand the program that's running. So I can say, well, Johann, you're running a program with the symptoms that your skin peels or your ears ring, or right? And then I can reverse engineer it to see what may be happening in your psychobiology, physically, mentally, emotionally. And then let's see what you can change from inside in order to bring yourself back into alignment. We don't give energy, again, to the label.
Yeah.
So, and you're a living example, if I can use a word, you're a living example of that very thinking. We can philosophize about this. Isn't it great if, but when you're low, your energy is low, and you have barely enough energy to go up a flight of stairs, like you said, and yet you're expected to adopt a different thinking. And I can't help but think when you said UK Health Radio, look, I mean, your energy was going into making up a flight of stairs, and you're telling me in the middle of that was the birth of this huge idea. Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm curious.
It was actually a bit of creativity that really helped me as well. I was in those 7 months before I read the Dr. Warburg quote, was really a very, very, very dark time. And I was in a really dark place with literally hundreds of pieces of printed out papers flying all over the house with information on it. And everything I read was, you are going to die, it is going to be painful, and you're probably going to die as soon as possible. That's literally how dark it was, literally everything. And I kept on saying to Rafaela, but it's taking me 7 months to get here. There must be a place somewhere where people like me can just go and within a day or two, or even if it's a week or 2 weeks, find what took me 7 months to find.
Wow.
And that was basically the beginning of it. My mind, a photographer, it works in images. And it's actually really interesting because people often say to me, why radio? And I agree, why radio? I've never had anything to do with radio, but for me, radio was always a very personal medium. And if you do radio correctly, the person listening can feel as if the voice coming through the radio is speaking only to him or her.
That's right. Absolutely.
It's so powerful. And the other reason is the local radio station in Hamburg. I have to translate this, of course. So it's not quite as good as it is in German, but the local radio station had a slogan that translated basically says, radio goes in your ears and the message stays in your head. Radio geht ins Ohr und bleibt im Kopf. And somehow, there was a music radio station, it had nothing to do with health or anything, but somehow that really the image came up of this, of me sitting there with the stuff going in and the information staying in the head kind of thing. And that's why that's radio. I still remember phoning and speaking with my agent, my photographic agent, who was here in London at the time, and asking him if he knew anybody in radio, because I had no idea, none whatsoever, of radio. It was, and that's just how it started. And during my journey, I contacted Robert Scott Bell. He's a homeopath in the United States. Really, really amazing man. He's been He's been doing a show for probably about 25 years now, that I stumbled across as well during my search. And I wrote to Robert, and Robert actually answered me personally.
Wow.
And when I got this idea for the radio, not in the beginning, of course, but once it started materializing in my head, if I could call it that, I mentioned it to him, and Robert said to me, "I'll give you my show." And it was like, I thought, okay, the universe at work again. Here we go. I have no content. I have an idea for a radio station. Now I have content. It was luckily he does a daily show. It's a 2-hour daily show that he does. And luckily for that, because once we started UK Health Radio, Steve, you mentioned in the beginning, within 6 weeks, I like telling the story because we built a website that I called the Wonder Website, because I wondered why the hell it was working, or how we had managed to get it to work.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and for the beta time, for the first 3 months, we had 2 listeners, and I was the one. And I can promise you, Rafaela was the other one.
Now that is a supportive relationship.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's never admitted it, not even today. She's never said, yes, it was me. But I know it was her. So
see, there's hope for our show, Steve, okay? There's hope for our show. We make all our families and friends listen. We make them. And then we ask them, so what did you hear? And we give them tests, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that once again, as I mentioned before, that was another energy boost, another wow, I've actually got a radio station, even if it was one show running 24 hours a day and nothing else,
And today, can you give me an idea of the scale, please?
Yes, today we have 1.25 million listeners worldwide.
Wow. Wow.
We have 42 presenters doing 42 shows. We have a health magazine called Health Triangle Magazine. That's it's only digital, but we've just published now. 3 days ago, we published issue 98, and it's a 70-page. I always get people always accuse me of trying to turn it into a fashion magazine.
But
it's not.
Why not?
Because it looks like it. A lot of the health and medical magazines are very sterile. They're very, I call them aluminium-y, because they all look, this is the exact opposite. It's colorful, it's happy, it's positive. It looks like a fashion magazine, but inside is only health, nothing else. There's no, we have a section on books and stuff like that, and we have a poetry corner, because our editor is such an amazing writer himself. But other than that, it's only health. So yeah, I've managed to create that, something that's really exciting to look at, and not austere and cold and steely, aluminium-y kind of.
It's warm. It's warm. You can feel the heart. You can feel, right, that you want the heart to engage and go, wow.
Yeah.
Right. That's inviting.
It is. Yeah. So yeah, that's UK Health Radio is. It's just become such an amazing source for, and exactly what I wanted. I wanted a place where, on UK Health Radio, we don't tell people what to do. We source the best, and as far as we can tell, true information possible, and we deliver it to the people in a very, very, very positive manner.
Excellent.
But what we do, and really purposefully, is we try and get people to become part of the process of their health freedom. That we do. We tell people in no uncertain terms to do that. So the information is there, and it's not only, a lot of people look at at my journey and they think, okay, so it's only natural health, or it's not. It's natural health, it's mainstream health, it's integrative health, it's everything. I could literally say that sometimes more than half of what's airing on UK Health Radio, I don't necessarily agree with. But it's not my place to withhold information that might help other people. So I find that really, really, really important. That's why I really struggle with censorship, because who am I to censor, to not offer information to people? Who gives me the right to do that? So I have a bit of an issue with that, with censorship. So, but I think that is also the reason the way we do it in the positive manner, and that we do everything, is also the reason why UK Health Radio has never been censored. Not once.
Wow. These past 2 years, no issues?
No censorship. They haven't taken us off. They haven't. The only thing we did get was a language warning.
Okay.
Because we had one show and one of the co-presenters he was fired up. And we did. So we know that people were listening. The regulatory boards are listening.
Okay.
So we did get a rap on the finger for that, on the knuckles for that. But I honestly believe is the way we do it is the reason why we haven't been censored at all.
Johann, we're talking about from reset to renewal. We started off talking about the Great Reset over the past couple of years. Have you noticed a difference with UK Health Radio over the past couple of years? Did this reset, how did it impact UK Health Radio?
Tremendously. We went from just under 500,000 listeners to 1.25 million in 2 years.
Wow.
In the last 2 years.
Wow.
I think this whole pandemic has made health mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, there's a little bit of a resentment against it, because I think people have just had too much of it, but it's never going to go away completely. I think health has always been a niche area, always has been, and the pandemic has definitely helped people become part of their process of their health, become part of the process of their own health. They're definitely looking into things. They're definitely looking at, but even on a, I'm not gonna palm it all onto COVID now either. Even with people I speak with that are going through cancer, that are dealing with cancer at the moment, I get asked questions that I only spoke about 3, 4, 5 years ago of if you do choose to do chemotherapy, then look for supplements that will not only support your immune system, but even, and through that, make the chemo work better. That kind of thing that I spoke about, as I said, 4 or 5 years ago, I'm being asked those questions now. What did you take to support your immune system while you were going? I didn't do chemo, but I did radiotherapy, that kind of stuff, So yeah. There's a huge shift in awareness about people's health, in worldwide, and it's not only in the United States or in the UK here by us. It's worldwide. In the UK here, I see it naturally because I'm here, but at the moment here in the UK, there's a huge movement. It's amazing to watch. I relish every second. I just sit and enjoy it. I really do. It's just it's all going in the right direction. We've got a long way to go, but it's made a turn in the right direction, because it was literally going in the opposite direction for a very.
So there's a huge gift right there. Steve and I had started this whole series off by saying, the Great Reset, what a gift.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing here is that in real terms, in real numbers, in the real world, if you will, okay, there is a reset happening, or there's an opportunity for reset. Another word for reset is change. Really, it's and change, is constant. I mean, it's a fact of life and living. So I don't know why it gets us so freaked out, the whole idea of anything changing.
Yeah.
But we have a great reset, and the direction that reset goes can be determined by your attitude and your understanding that you can take this opportunity to ride the wave of reset. And if you go from the inside out, you're going to create an alignment and put yourself in the driver's seat, right? That's the accountability. What I'm hearing from you is it's wonderful to see that people are beginning to shift away from the model of blame, right? Or what was that doctor?
Victimhood.
Right? Or it was that GMO that did it to me, or my mother didn't tell me, and now if I'd known, or whatever, right? There's always something or someone to point the finger at, and replace that with accountability. And once we take accountability, I always say it's like you're letting yourself out of the cage. I look at blame as something where we're actually opening, that we're moving into a cage, or prison cell. Okay, me. Whereas as soon as I choose accountability, the door opens to solutions. Absolutely. And I feel that you took accountability. Some part of you, your inner guru, managed to get your attention and say, hello, right? Hello, I am here, and we have a choice.
Yeah. And
you listened. And yes, it's not an easy journey, but it's a necessary one. And it sounds to me, if I was to look at this, is that somewhere in this, maybe part 1, part 2 of this whole diagnostic journey we're on, I think you made what I call, and Steve calls, the decision. And then sometimes from the inside, when I find, you make that decision, then the word sacrifice doesn't even come up.
Yeah.
The reframe happens in such a way that, everything reprograms, if you will, and hopefully to a healthier program. I just love this, though. I can't imagine people not being inspired by someone here who is told, get your affairs in order. You can leave your family behind. You will leave everything that mattered to you behind, your career, your body, everything is going to get left behind. And here's your checkout date, right?
12 months. Yeah.
Yeah, you were given a checkout date and you're like, wait a minute. Okay. And so I really hope that people will, whatever they're dealing with in life, doesn't have to be the big C. It can literally be anything, right? The idea is that we're being given an opportunity to reset. Sometimes it's a real big kick in the pants opportunity, right? It's a matter of degree, but it didn't take you a week to get there. You took many years to get there too. So you, right? And so, and then can we look at that opportunity as, here's an opportunity to reset, and rather running the fear program. Yes, some healthy fear is good. Listen to that episode. However, if I can choose to come at it from a place of a foundation of, as Steve always says, the minute you can have love and gratitude for any situation, that's when you will be free, truly free. So if we can start to say, wow, at least be open, even willing to consider the idea that, can I be grateful for this, right? Even the willingness, we've got to find some place, because that's the opening. And out of that, look how much blossom. Look at how many lives and hearts and minds that your journey has ended up. It's like a seed goes in with the hope that the tree will grow. And then out of that, despite adversity and storms and earthquakes, that it's going to find a way. And then it's, like a mango tree. I love mangoes, right? So that it's good, right? I think you and I are going to have a lot of things in common here, because I was going to comment on when you said radio is so intimate. Since I was in my teens, I've always had that desire to be a late night radio person who just has intimate unscripted conversations with people, because there's this kind of a deep intimacy about that. And when I'm on stage in the good old days when we were speaking to real people in the audience, the biggest compliment I ever receive is when somebody comes up and says, "Hey, Tarun, that was just for me today, right?" And I said, "Of course. All the others were actors there to make it feel like, but it was about you and for you." And that's the biggest compliment.
Yeah.
Right. But here I see this huge renewal. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Tarun, also what we're witnessing here, when we spoke about individual but not separate, and you may have thought, at the time, Johann, that this was an individual journey you were going on, when you were to be able to turn your feelings of victimhood into empowerment and self-mastery, and turn disease into health and wellness. But again, we think it's an individual journey, but you've now got 1.2 million listeners who have gone on that journey with you and are continuing to go on that journey with you. And so, kudos to you for, the impact that you've had around the globe from sharing your journey. Thank you for that, really.
Absolutely.
It's just so wonderful to be able to do it, Steve. It's invigorating. It fills me with. I jump out of bed at 4 o'clock in the mornings.
Wow.
to start my day. It really. I know how it sounds, but it's literally how my life at the moment. It's just so. It's fantastic. It's invigorating, and it is really, really fulfilling, and I'm really grateful for it, because it is why I'm here. It is that second important day in my life, and it hasn't changed. And I love being a fashion photographer. It was wonderful. I mean, who wouldn't? 25 years old, the most beautiful girls in the world, the most beautiful places in the world. You know what I mean? But
not for me.
It doesn't.
Yeah, Steve cannot relate at all. Yeah.
But it doesn't come close to what I have at the moment. So.
Okay, now I have to do this. This is totally off topic, but I have to ask it, because both Steve and I are into photography, and we do our version of, I would want to say, brilliant photography. But that's, it's always in the eye of the beholder, correct? So I just have to ask the question here, Johann. I'm sure our audience is going to be so mad at me. But, when we meet each other in camera clubs or other places, and we're always eyeballing the other photographer, and you know what we look at?
Equipment.
we look at their junk, right? I mean, now let me clarify that, okay? No, just stay calm. And the question is always Canon or Nikon. Yeah. So I got to know. Well, I mean, Johann, Canon or Nikon?
You're going to be very surprised at this answer.
Okay.
I don't care, as long as when I press the button, it does what I want it to do.
Oh my! That's not fair, because we've drawn lines and we've been battling the us and them and Canon versus Nikon for as long as I can remember, and me being a Canon guy, of course, right? Yeah. And then, can you believe the number of Canon guys who then betrayed the Canon people and went to Sony? I mean, what is this world coming? Okay, I know Steve is giving me that look like, Tarun, this is a whole other episode, but I couldn't keep it in anymore.
That's a therapy session for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I suppose I'm going to need a little bit of tapping on this, Steve, and my story, because I mean, I'm very loyal, and I stuck with the Canon ranks. The next thing I look at my friend, I go, "What's that? That doesn't look like a Canon I've seen." They go, "Oh no, I've gone to Sony," and I just felt so betrayed.
Yeah.
But so I guess we have little battles in our lives too, right? It doesn't always have to be the huge ones.
No, it doesn't. No, I don't know why. It never mattered to me. As long as it could do what I wanted it to do, I was happy.
Okay, so I guess I have a little bit of learning to do here in integration. I think that's a very spiritual. Don't get caught
on that. Yeah, on that very note, there is talking, Johann. I think it's very important for people to look at that as well, in terms of whatever approach they choose to take on their quest for health and well-being. because so many people, they come from a divided camp. It's either
Yes.
or, you know. And so I think what you're saying is whatever one works for you.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Steve. And very important for the people around that person is not to force their beliefs and their fears and whatever else you want to call it onto the person who's going through it. Support him in his way by all, as I mentioned before. If somebody does choose to do, let's use cancer as an example, does choose to do either radiotherapy or chemo, then support them with it, because if they believe in it, they're 3 steps ahead of you already.
That's right.
That belief. And then look for things, the integrative thing that, you know, I don't think people see how important integrative medicine is. I always say to people, when you open your closet, is there only one make of clothes in your closet? And they go, no, of course not. I wear what fits me. And I go, so why do you do it with your health?
Beautiful.
Why do you follow one stupid little path when there are millions that you could follow? You know, so then support that person who's in the midst of it. Support him in his or her belief, but bring in your belief as integrative, as things that can help, like supplements that can improve your immune system, that will then make the chemotherapy work quicker, etc., etc. Because you know, it's so important. The belief part of that is so important. And if somebody is, as I mentioned before, if he believes or she believes, they are 3-4 steps ahead of everybody around them in the first place already.
So what you're talking really about is the in compassion, that when we have compassion, there's no room for judgment.
No, absolutely.
We just replace, when we have compassion, we can replace judgment with support.
Yeah.
And even that being to me, I always consider myself not my support, but higher power support that comes through me.
Definitely. Because it's confusing if you keep on getting other information in between, and it confuses you, and if you are going through something like that, believe me, you are easily confused.
Yes.
I was confused multiple times, you know, and you are vulnerable. Yeah. So instead of almost taking advantage of that vulnerability, whether you're doing it purposefully or not, that's basically what you are doing. You're taking advantage of somebody's vulnerability. Instead of doing that, support, as you said, Tyrone, so beautifully, support and love is what brings you further down the road.
Well, I think after that last line, Steve, we better just be quiet, because what else do we need to, after all of this 70 minutes that we've been together, if that's the only thing that people hear, you know, with support and love, right? I mean, then I think we've had a great session today, because at the end of the day, if people can take one thing that they heard and run with it for themselves, I'm delighted. And support and love, compassion, kindness, they can be in short supply if we play the us and them game. So let's together just invite all our friends out there to consider for a minute, you know, how they can connect to those qualities within themselves and also be open to them. And I think we're going to have a happier and healthier world. And on that note, Johann, boy, I have a feeling we're going to be talking to you again, because this is just getting more interesting. So, but for now, I think it would be appropriate to wrap up. And thank you so much for being sort of the crowning part of this series, the gift of renewal, getting past the past. Because as I speak to you and I get to know you, I don't see you as someone who's using the past as a weapon. I don't see you being self-identifying as a victim. I hear you as someone who had to survive. And so for a phase there, you were a survivor, which is appropriate, but you didn't get stuck in that mindset. Instead, you went from survivor to thriver. And let us get that message out there that just when something happens to you, it doesn't define you. It doesn't become who you are. It's part of an experience, a program, and an opportunity to learn and grow. And that as you move through that, you can grow and thrive in so many ways as you have. So thank you for that super powerful message today. Very, very appreciated.
Thank you, Johann.
Arun and Steve. Thank you so much. It's been invigorating for me to speak with you both.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Likewise, and we always like to say, may peace be with you, or Om Shanti. Until we meet again, friends, bye for now.
We trust you found practical value in this podcast and will enthusiastically share it with others in your circle. And if you are so moved, leave us a review or write a post on social, tagging #ChaiChatPodcast, and we will show our appreciation. Promise. Tarun Puri and Steve Harvey welcome you to join us for a Chai Chat at all of our live events and more. Connect with us with your questions, topic suggestions, and reviews at info@ChaiChatPodcast.com.